This topic I'm going to talk about is how to become more familiar with your subject. Sometimes the ideas that I get for a deliverable come from some of the students' posts and sometimes my comments and things that I kind of discover along the way. And of course, I continue to go back to my own um, learning process and when and I'm still learning all the time, but in my earlier days, things that when the light went off, I went, oh gosh, that's an important element to remember and to uh, work with and to hold on to. And so those earlier days still resonate with me, and I can I can easily look back to uh, where I was, and sometimes I can see where a student is, and I'm going, I kind of remember when I was at that stage. What was I missing? How did I learn to overcome some of those challenges? Painting and drawing and being an artist, it's not as easy as sometimes the end result appears. I've heard often, and you maybe have too, where somebody sees a painting and go, "Oh gosh, I could do that," and maybe they're just do some artwork a little bit, and it's always good to be confident with yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. To have confidence that you could maybe possibly do that. But when push comes to shove, when people really have to sit down and try to accomplish what they might see and think is being easy, they start to find out that it's not as easy as what it seems to be. But here's something that I have found along the way that helps me, especially when I'm developing much more of a finished product. And of course, this is what this whole workshop that you're involved in, taking a study and developing it into a larger studio painting. And how do we become more familiar, or are there ways that we can become more familiar with the subject at hand and some of the nuances that we first kind of overlook? If you were to take a subject to begin with, and if I find a subject and just begin to paint it, and of course that's really what plein air painting is all about. It's about having all your gear that you can take out on location and find a subject worthy of putting it on as a translation on a canvas. And that's what a plein air artist does. Before that term was in this country, we just called it outdoor painting. But it became very well known through learning about the artists in Europe that Corot and Monet were probably one of the more of the common name artists that put outdoor painting, or what became the French term as plein air, painting in the open air, painting more of a household name, if you will, like we know today. And they went out to study light, how light affected a subject, how different times of the year affected that same subject. Monet has many examples of painting not only subjects, the same subject throughout the daytime, morning, mid-morning, afternoon, and later, and then sometimes even into the darkness and nocturne. But also he had the haystacks that he painted in different times of the year to kind of show how the seasons and the type of light, from a very low horizon light that you get in the wintertime to that more crystal clear light that you get in the summertime when it's almost straight overhead, and how the atmosphere affects the lighting upon a subject, and of course the distance. All that I'm talking about is what the plein air artist needs to familiarize themselves with. and they have to compare. They might have been out the day before on a little sunny day, and the next day they want to go out and paint again. And it might not be a sunny day. It might be kind of a foggy, misty morning. And they still may want to go and not stay in bed. And they still want to get up and they put the right gear on. They have the right equipment. They can put an umbrella up or paint under a cover, someplace where they're not getting wet. And the outdoor artist kind of finds a little bit of whatever they can to help them be able to capture that scene. I think it was Walter Elmer Schofield. I may not have this quote exactly right, but it's something, it goes something like wind, rain, hail, and snow, all these things to contend with only make the outdoor painter love the fight. And that is so true. Once you become so enamored and so enthralled with trying to capture light and atmosphere and the effects upon the subjects that we so endear, that we will go out in all conditions to try to capture those effects best as we can from direct observation onto a canvas. But there's more ways too that one can become. You don't have to necessarily be a plein air artist. And this particular course does not require that you are a plein air artist, but I do suggest and also try to encourage artists to get out and paint from life. That's where you're going to learn the most. That's where you're going to learn everything you possibly can, and even more. Once you think you've learned all of it, you'll find there's more to still acquire, and it's a wonderful profession to be in, and I can't wait sometimes in the morning to wake up and get out to paint or to work on a project that I've been already working on in the studio. So let's get into a few different slides here. This is an interesting scene from I judged a plein air event down in Louisiana, and I had a few days prior to the judging. I went out and did some of my own searching and looking around, and I came across this neat little boat, probably a shrimp boat or some kind of boat for netting. They catch all kinds of things down in the Gulf, so I'm not sure if this was for shrimp or not. This was on a Sunday afternoon; nobody was around. So, and here's a little sketch that I did with gouache, and I made it much warmer than what it was. You can see here's the original color of the paper. I have just a light watercolor, almost watercolor wash for that background that I put down first. And then I dry brushed the trees in, but I made it much warmer. It appeared much warmer to me than this particular shot. But I just like this road kind of leading up the grass on either side, and it made for, and then a light, of course, that was on the boat. Most of the boat was in shadow, and made for kind of a fun painting. I might do a larger oil painting of that particular scene someday. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll put some figures in here. Some figures, maybe a guy working on something back here, and another guy standing here pulling something up, and maybe a guy over here standing and handing some stuff to that guy. Look, I'm just drawing this stuff real quickly without even looks like somebody in a dress there. Maybe it's a woman standing there. And anyways, I just sometimes sketch loosely and get an idea what I might do and add something to it, just to help tell the story a little bit instead of this abandoned boat just sitting there. Maybe need something. So, anyways, this all, again, what I did here will help me eventually when I do a larger painting. I will remember that, I needed to soften some of these edges with the grasses, and how did they appear here? Well, maybe they didn't quite appear that exact way, but I wanted to soften that transition before I got to the hard edge and the weight of that, whoops, I went to the wrong one. The weight of that boat, and the darkness of that boat. This again is all a very symmetrical and geometric shapes and this is all more organic. Then you get to some more geometric shapes, and in the background, it was fun to put that in. You can see I put that in first before I put this in. I left some of these areas white and negative so I could paint around it. I drew this whole thing first. And that's another thing too, that when you're doing gouache, if you need the white of the canvas, you have to plan it out so that you have the white there. So you can put your colors down properly, just like a watercolor. And by drawing it, you start to learn about the shapes, understand the overlapping, where this happens, where that happens, and then you put the color down, and the color going from back. I put this in first, put this in over top the background, and then I started to develop the other shapes that I had left negative and open. Develop those as far as foreground and where the boat was in relationship to the background. And doing all that, as I'm talking, but when you're actually doing it, you become more familiar with everything that's in that scene. And hence, so when it comes down to doing a final painting of that, even if it's a year or two later, it's amazing how you will remember some of those things that you took the time to address, the somewhat translucency of that net. And you can see a little bit of that background through it. That's something that you pick up here and there when you're painting outside or observing outside, and then you can apply it to your work. So let's go to another one here. This is another scene from a local scene. This is a park that I visit often, and it's this wonderful stream. And this was, I'm trying to think, it might have been late spring. I know some trees weren't fully leafed out. There were these trees in front and right here were just getting some leaves on them. I'm not sure what kind of trees they were, but I like this stream leading back. And everything was in shadow in the foreground here for the most part, but there was just some light starting to hit, and especially in this open area back here where the sun was consistent. As I looked around various scenes to the right, to the left, and then back of me, and then back at this one was not changing. And I knew from where the light was, this would not change much, that this would stay consistent for quite some time. If anything, the sun was going to get a little higher. The sun was over here coming up, and if anything, the light was going to start to come in. You can see some light on that part of that grass right there, I think. But if anything, the light was going to spill in here more and over here. So I quickly got this developed. And you can see I'm kind of painting almost, let me make this bigger. I'm painting almost in a block-in style of just puzzle shapes. You can almost see where some of these have endings, but I'm already addressing edges and softening edges as I was developing this. And let's go to, here's the scene that I was enthralled with, that light behind, these trees in front. And let's see, I think here's kind of the finished study. A little bit warmer colors than what were there. And so that there were darker warms, but what happened is I wanted to have the cools here and a little bit of the cool in the sky to be contrasted by the warms, and then of course the sunlight that was hitting more back there, and just a little bit of sunlight right in that part of the stream. It helps to bring in move your eye through and start to bring it this way. Of course, the light here, this is its reflection light of sunlight. It's not actually sunlight, it's reflection of sunlight. So it helps to bring your eye through from the top. It helps you bring your eye, move your eye back through, and then get it back to the outside and come back around again. And my focal point, probably the lightest light and the darkest dark was probably almost right in here, but I haven't done a finished larger paint. This is just a small study. I might make it more in this area here. Might make these trees a little bit darker, a little bit bigger, and might move this light area over here so it's not so much right in the middle. Might recompose this a little bit at the very end. But these are some ways that you can become more familiarized with the subject that you are about to paint, sketching it. Even in a light line sketch or a value sketch, learning how to make that building look like it's or a tree look like it's growing out of the land instead of just plunked down on top of it. Looking at the edges of the grasses. Maybe it's a very manicured scene, but yet there's something that makes the building look like it's anchored and not just placed as a puzzle shape on top of it. Or if it's an older building and grass is growing around it, that's a little bit easier. That allows you to put things in front and make it look like it's part and growing up. So all these things that I'm suggesting help you to become more familiar with your subject. So use them wisely, and they're all great learning tools too. As I'm doing all these different things occasionally, I learn more about the subjects that I'm painting, the light that I'm about to paint, the atmosphere that I'm about to paint. How can I create that illusion that much better, that I'm so inspired by, that I'm standing in front of, or that I may be taking a photograph of. Again, this doesn't mean you have to be out there painting it, but if you're taking a photograph of it, right, take some notes of your scene, because sometimes the photographs and the capture devices of today are very good. They're much better than years ago, but it all depends on how you're shooting them and how you're using those capture devices, that maybe the end result becomes too contrasty. And I talked about that often, how sometimes that becomes a problem and you have to adjust it in Photoshop or whatever photo editing program you may have on your computer. But that's all part of our territory as an artist today, using these tools wisely. I get out and paint often. This was a particular scene that I put into a sepia, but this was from a scene on Maui, and unfortunately we just heard of the tragedy and the fires and the loss of life, and especially life and pets and property. And I painted in the Maui plein air event, and which was held, the main area was Lahaina, where everybody painted. You could paint any place on the island you wanted, but that's where the festivities all took place. And it was so sad to see all of it just gone, and people's lives completely changed. And again, some people lost their lives. What a tragic event that happens. And a lot of artists that went there for years captured the wonderful beauty of that particular area of the Hawaiian Islands. And here, this is myself again, painting on the coast. Just somebody was walking along, and I asked them, "Do you mind taking a few shots of me?" And see what they came up with. They did a great job for me and took some wonderful whole bunch of photos that I could use for some PR purposes, and that's, I'm always very grateful for people that come along and would do something like that. So anyways, keep those brushes to the canvas, and I'll watch for your posts. And again, become more familiar with your subject. The more familiar you are, the better your translations will be. Take care for now. Bye.